Hi, good morning and welcome to meditation. Today is the 11th of October. I'm keep on meditating with you since the month of July in the importance of being a disciple of Jesus Christ, a person who has been born from above. To help him in these meditations, I have been reading in Philippians chapter 1 verse 11, where we're going to find the word righteousness, the righteousness of Christ in us. And then I checked all the verses in the New Testament where the word righteousness appears. It does appear in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 9. If the ministry that brought condemnation was glorious, how much more glorious is the ministry that brings righteousness? Paul is going to compare his ministry here with the ministry of Moses in the desert when he received the Ten Commandments and the law of God. Paul in 2 Corinthians is defending his ministry and the ministry of his friends. And he's going to be doing this in chapter 3. Are we beginning to command ourselves again? Or do we need, like some people, letters of recommendation to you or from you? You yourselves are our letter, written on our heart, known and read by everyone. You show that you are a letter from Christ, the result of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God. Isn't that amazing? Not on tables of stone, but on tables of human hearts. First, God wrote his law on stone, on tables of stone. But then his purpose had always been to write his eternal law in our hearts. That's written in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. Before God chose Abraham and his descendants to glorify his name on his earth, he had proclaimed the eternal gospel, as Paul says in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. The gospel is eternal. And he's saying here that that was the purpose from the beginning, to write God's law in our hearts by the Spirit of the living God. Verse 4, such confidence we have through Christ before God, that we are competent in ourselves to claim everything for ourselves, but our competence comes from God. He has made us competent as ministers of a new covenant. There is the old covenant, and there is the new one. You could also call the new covenant the eternal covenant, meaning God decided to put his Spirit in us. Not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit of God gives life. That's amazing. Now, if the ministry that brought death, which was engraved in letters of stone, came with glory, so that the Israelites could not look steadily at the face of Moses because of its glory, transitory though it was, will not the ministry of the Spirit be even more glorious? Of course it will. As Paul says, writing to the Colossians, Christ in you is the hope of glory. So before, Moses had the glory reflected on his face, but then it was disappearing. So he covered his face with a veil, not to prevent people from getting blind by looking at the light. No. It's because there was no more light. And then he was covering so people to pretend he still had the light. Paul is going to say later on in chapter 3 that we don't need to do that because we have got the light of God in our hearts. Brothers and sisters, you have got the ministry of reconciliation. You are in the ministry of the new covenant because the glory of God is in your heart. That is the glory of God's righteousness. God bless you.